good clap. Alright, that was good.
Pretty good.
That was pretty good. That was
Yeah,
a good
right?
clap.
Meet Jorge. Apart from being my roommate, Jorge is a dirty little gamer, just like me. The big difference between us is that my gaming is rooted in the past with old games that aren't being produced anymore. But Jorge is different. Jorge is a modern gamer who plays all the hot new releases. Today, I've sat Jorge down and forced him to play all my favorite games for my entertainment. And to make things awkward, I've stuck the camera in his face for your entertainment.
I think this looks better. So,
I have no idea what that was.
so you ever played, what's the oldest game you ever played? Like, fully, like, played.
I don't know. Hold on. What would it be? Probably an Xbox game, like the original Xbox things. I don't know which one though.
And now you're playing Super Mario World. You're kind of shredding.
I did this because I wanted to see which of my favorite games Jorge would like and which games he would hate. Being a modern gamer, Jorge has a unique perspective, and I wanted to record his first impressions. He played over a dozen games and really enjoyed many of them. He liked a lot of my games that were sorta old. I'm talking 6th generation games from the early 2000s.
Oh!
Monkey Ball and F-Zero GX, for example, are two of the games he played and loved. This is pretty understandable as these games aren't that ancient.
You sending it?
I took too long to go. I got it. I choked. Whew! Almost choked.
But of course, there were many games that were too outdated for him to appreciate.
Do you
Which
think
makes
Complex
sense.
is good?
Oh my god, what the hell did I just do there? Dude, I can't jump this gap. Oh.
For bigger gaps,
Well,
I need
this
to do a
doesn't
round jump.
work, but...
Back to the start.
You know, okay, just spam, I guess? No.
Okay, that was quite a tough.
Oh, backflip.
You need to make
Oh.
a running jump and then press action for me to grab
Damn.
it. To get
She
the height
moving.
exactly right, walk to the edge, then tap backwards to jump back.
Are you hearing what Lara's saying? I can
Nope.
repeat it. Okay.
Press jump.
If you press the walk button, you can walk up to an edge, then release walk, then walk backwards, then run forwards and jump.
Is this the fastest you can walk? Is there a...
Well, you can run.
How does one do that?
You let go of the walk button.
Okay. So you have to walk up, jump back, walk up, jump, or
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
okay.
The second walk's a run, though.
No, that's
I
not
pressed the
right.
wrong button.
You need to press jump and forward together for me to keep.
Jorge also had a lot of fun playing real oldies like Mario World from 1990, a few Game Boy games from the late 80s, as well as many others that I made him play. But what I found fascinating is that the games Jorge found truly foreign and unplayable were games from the late 90s, the 5th generation.
What the hell? Dude, this feels awful. This feels so bad. Tomb Raider one, that was the worst thing ever. I've never played anything that hard to have. It was just weird. Oh. You know, I don't know what to say about that game. Were you paying attention to the background at all?
Like like mountains.
Yeah, was it weird for you?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very exciting.
I don't know if that was just me or not. That was weird. Like, I got lost in it a lot. I don't know what the point of that game was, though. I was so lost. I don't know if I was doing it wrong or what.
On paper, this doesn't really make any sense. If anything, a modern gamer should have more trouble with older games and less trouble with newer games. But here, he was only having trouble with 5th generation games. After some research, I found that this is pretty common. Many new gamers have a lot of trouble with this era of video games. But why? What makes these games so painful for new players with a modern perspective? And more importantly, is there any way for these people to learn how to appreciate the 5th generation? Maybe these questions are easier to answer than we think. Maybe 5th generation games are completely different from anything that came before or after. You see, the 4th generation harbored a mastery of two-dimensional side-scrolling game design. Part of that mastery is finding an instant connection with new players. This is why most people, including Jorge, could find 4th generation games that they can pick up and understand quite easily. The 5th generation isn't as approachable because developers had a plethora of new hardware that gave way to new ideas that they didn't really understand yet. The most notable addition that the 5th generation brought to the table was three-dimensional graphics. Before the 5th generation, most home console games were two-dimensional. The only exceptions are games that looked a little half-baked, to say the least. Despite the quality of these games, they sold fantastic. People could barely comprehend playing a 3D game in their living room, and they wanted more. The most sensible and lucrative direction for the industry to go was into the Z-axis.
Turn left.
1994 saw the release of the PlayStation, which had several games with striking, unprecedented 3D graphics. Expectedly, people loved them and couldn't get enough. The PlayStation sold wildly. The early Generation 5 releases saw some fantastic, well-loved games. Resident Evil, Crash Bandicoot, Metal Slug, Gex, Rayman, and many, many, many more. But these are the games that modern players have the most difficulty playing. They're clunky to control simply because the developers hadn't fine-tuned 3D controls yet. The technology was young. Unfortunately, this means that for modern gamers, the barrier of entry is just too large to be conquered, and for many, an entire era of games is untouchable. Of course, game design tactics improved over the years, but it wasn't until 1997 that game developers mastered three-dimensional control for players. Of course, I'm referring to Nintendo's Super Mario 64, and the hundreds of hours that went into designing over 250 movement options and animations. They also had dozens of children test the game during its different stages of completion. Mario 64 is nothing short of a masterpiece. It's still considered one of the greatest games of all time. Many modern gamers find and appreciate it, even today. It's one of the few 5th generation games that has this property of everlasting prominence. That said, it's still not perfectly approachable. Many find its movement to lack fluidity, unless you've mastered it, of course. And the camera is just abysmal from a casual point of view.
Nice, I can't see him.
Of course, other developers tried to copy Nintendo and expand on what they started, but unfortunately, many didn't have the money, time, or ambition to reach such a fantastic level of control for a player. As a result, games didn't become too much easier to control after 1997. So if every game from this era is just stuck in a limbo where only people who grew up learning its archaic controls can enjoy it, is there any reason to force Jorge to sit here and play them on camera? Is there any way for people like him to learn to appreciate 5th generation games? I believe there is. Now, hear me out. Let's imagine a staircase that can slowly descend a modern gamer into the world of the 5th generation. Each step represents a game that is more unapproachable and unfamiliar to a modern gamer than the step before. If a gamer plays these games in this type of order, they can be eased into the expectations of the 5th generation and, in turn, learn to appreciate these types of games. I found that this method works. My test subject was myself, actually. That's right, I didn't always love the 5th generation so much. In fact, I used to hate it. You see, I didn't grow up playing 5th generation games, but I had older brothers who did, and that made me curious about those games. However, every time I tried to play them, I hated it. I couldn't comprehend how anyone could enjoy such clunky, unplayable trash. I threw them aside and continued with my new releases. I tried to ignore it, but my curiosity eventually got the better of me, and I began trying several games until I found that I had a lot of fun with Super Mario 64. From there, I continued finding different games that brought me joy, and I slowly crept down this staircase of unfamiliarity and was able to embrace the eternal pit that we call the 5th generation of video games. The video game industry's 5th generation is weird, but it's also beautiful. It can be ugly, but it's also really rewarding. Some of the greatest and most ambitious ideas came to light during this era. Tossing this era aside because it feels too archaic is like throwing away some potentially fantastic memories. Like the time I beat Donkey Kong 64 after 10 years of being confused. Or playing Tomb Raider after my buddy bought it for my birthday. Or like right now, watching Jorge play Super Mario 64. The same game that brought me into this weird world of 5th generation games. The 5th generation can be a lot, but if you're willing to put in the time, you can make some fantastic memories. I encourage all of you to try your best at diving into this wacky era of video game history. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
My first star. Let's go.